Hey, Nick Granville here from Wellington, New Zealand. I had a student today, Nick, who was asking about walking bass lines, and I thought this would be a good topic to do a video for and put on YouTube. So I thought I'd do a lesson covering walking bass lines. I tend to use these when I play solo guitar, but you can use them for lots of different things. Generally, I don't use them when I play with a band because you're going to get in their way, and the bass player's way or the piano player's way or something else. But if I'm just playing solo guitar, it's perfect. So what I thought I'd talk about today is the B flat blues, because that seems a good place to start. So I'm going to start with, obviously we have to start with what's going to happen with our hands. So the first thing I do is I don't use a pick when I do this stuff. I put the pick down, usually have it here because then I can get to it quickly, or I put it in between my finger just there, and I've still got use of my fingers. But I tend to prefer to use my fingers because then I can split up the bass note and the walking lines and the comping, I should say, with my fingers. So the thumb will play the bass line and the chords are played by the top fingers. Right. Like so. So that's sort of the technique behind how I do it, and if I have to solo and everything, then I just end up using my fingers and doing that. So the fingers are quite an integral part of this sort of technique and style we're going to talk about. Now this is not the only way to do solo guitar. Of course, sometimes I don't bother with the walking bass line. Sometimes I just play chords. Sometimes you might want to play some lines. All kinds of things work. So obviously the logical place to start with is the bass line. I mean, the bass line is really important when we're doing this stuff. And that's primarily what I'm going to talk about today, is the function of bass line with chord at the same time. So I think let's look at a B flat blues. Take a simple walking bass line. Something similar to that, and then once you've figured out what that is, and you know, go to some of the classic recordings and find some bass lines. You just have a couple under your belt that you can use, but that's one that I might use if I'm playing a B flat blues. It's sort of spelling out the chord changes nicely, and try and find a way to comp at the same time. Now with comping, I almost always use the chord on the offbeat, so not, so it'll be. See there, I put the chord on the end of one. I really like that because it's sort of it's where you're going to get the swing feel from and everything. So for me, the voicings are usually determined by where the bass note is. So if the bass note is here, I have a few options. I can play B flat 13 or B flat 9 is kind of a little bit harder, or B flat 7, but they're all going to be based around where that note is. Whereas if I'm here with my walking line, it's going to be B flat 9, B flat 7, etc, etc. If I'm here with my walking bass line, it's going to be, depending on where it functions within the tune. So a good place to start is just to start by putting your chords all on the end of one. So same bass line I played before, give or take, and I'm going to put the chords on the end of one. So we have, right? So you see there, I mean, a couple of times I broke it and I put them on the end of one and the end of three, but it's basically the same sort of thing. So the end of one is a great place to start. And as you see, the voicings I played when I played B flat, it was B flat 13. When I went to E flat, it was E flat 9. And I tend to stick to quite simple voicings when I do this stuff, especially if I'm backing a singer, or it's just me and a saxophone player in a duo format, or it's just me playing solo. Then I'll tend to stick to quite simple voicings, because there's enough happening already that's complicated that the voicing doesn't necessarily need to be all that complicated most of the time. Also, I should really talk about two feels. When it comes to a four feel is when I'm playing 4 quarter notes per bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right, so on and so on. There's 4 notes per bar. A two feel can be when you play 2 notes per bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can voice that as well. See, once I moved into the 4 feel, it has a whole lot of momentum and push to the music. And you keep it in the 2 feel, it sort of feels much more relaxed and kind of just cruisy. And that can be really cool, especially if you're backing a singer and you're using this style of playing. You could do the 2 feel and then move into the 4 feel for the solo, or move into the 4 feel for the bridge. A way to work on this, as I said, is just to start putting them all on the end of 1. Then of course try the same thing, but do it on the end of 2, the end of 3, and then the end of 4. End of 1 and end of 3 tend to work really well. And I tend to like playing chords short most of the time, although occasionally I'll play them long when I punctuate. I think if you play them short, they sort of get out of the way of everything else that's happening in the music in that moment. And they tend to be more percussive and more rhythmic. One thing I was taught about solo guitar is that the most important thing is that something is happening all the time. You never want nothing to happen, or else there's no music. So the important thing for me, if I'm doing this style of playing, is that the bass line is always going. Alright, so even if I don't play chords for a while, it doesn't actually matter. So I'm going to play 4 bars with comping, and then I'm going to leave the comping out for a little bit, then I'll come back in with comping. So this is with comping. No comping. So yeah, the two things I was taught was with solo guitar was that something has to happen all the time. There always needs to be either a bass line, a chord, or something. But the other important thing too is variety. If you just keep playing the same things over and over and over again, it's going to get very boring very, very quickly. So for example, the first 2 chords, I went B flat to E flat, and then I went B flat, and I went F minor, B flat to E flat. I'm just putting some movement in. Well, if you started putting some other substitutions in when you do this stuff, then you start to create some different movement which keeps the interest alive. For example, I could go B flat 7 for a bar, E flat 7 for a bar, B flat 7 for a bar, half a bar, sorry, B7 for half a bar, B flat 7 for half a bar, E9 for half a bar, to E flat. I'll show you what that sounds like. So you see, I'm creating some movement by the substitutions. I could go another variation. Alright, another variation. so many different ways I can make that work. And substitutions can be the simplest of things, like putting a fifth in the bass rather than the root in the bass. It's not really a substitution, but in this context it almost sounds like you have. So for example, instead of B flat 7 as the first chord, I might play B flat 7 with an A flat in the bass. It sounds like a substitution. It really sounds like I'm playing A flat 7 sharp 11 of some sort. But really all I'm doing is playing B flat, the flat 7 on the bottom. I do that a lot when I do this stuff. I might go. So you see there I had a F7, I had the third in the bass, fifth in the bass, then I went back to the third but treated it like a diminished chord, and then resolved to B flat of some sort. In that case I'm playing B flat 6-9. I've got no third or seventh, so it's not really major or minor, but I could do something else with that. I might do a substitution where not have B flat 7 at all, right? So instead of that I might go. And you see once I hit the E flat chord, that's really bar 5, but that E7 sharp 9 becomes the whole first 4 bars as a tritone substitution, and that creates a whole lot of again, tension. It's just another way of building tension, and when you're playing solo, like in this style where we're playing walking bass lines, you can go wherever you want. You don't have to consider what other people are doing. If you're playing solo, it's really where you want to take the music, and there's a lot of possibilities. Another thing to think about too is maybe the way you connect the bass notes. So we have, was what I played before. You could go and voice every note of the bass note, and that works quite well too sometimes, although it can get very busy, so you don't want to do it all the time. So there were some things in there that probably weren't the best decisions, but hey, that's music, isn't it? Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you play what I just did. Anyway, you get the idea. It's a variety, and there's two things that I like to use a lot when I do variety. One of my favorites when I'm doing this sort of style of playing is to have pedal bass notes. Like a bass player would pedal on a certain note. We can do that too when we play solo note, things like this. So for example, the first chord's B flat 7, then it goes to an E flat 7. Well, after we've done a few choruses, we could just pedal on a B flat note. So you see when I released it, the E flat there on the 5th bar, it sort of has a bit more push. So I pedaled on a B flat across all those first chords. I'm still moving the comping. Could have C over B flat, B over B flat to B flat. Another type of pedal. There's heaps of them you could use. So check out how bass players use pedals, because they can be really powerful tools in a solo guitar setting like this where we're playing walking bass lines with chords. Another one that I'm a big fan of is to play stops, especially when I play the style, because you might have if you've been playing this walking bass line for ages and then all of a sudden it feels like it needs something else. So I might put some stops in, and usually stops are on beat 1 and I'll fill in between the stops. So for example, I might go 2, and I'll play in that gap, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, still playing right through all this. For example, when we're into the comping, so I might go and so on and so on. Your stops can be any of the kind of anything you like, really. It could be you see I'm getting a bit more adventurous with it now, but you get the idea. But stops, putting in some stops that become hits, and then filling in between them. And as I said, as long as something's happening the whole time, everything's cool. The other thing I like to do too, when playing this sort of style of guitar playing, is to put in ostinato patterns. So even though it's still a walking bass line, I might just do some kind of pattern. So for example, if the first 4 bars is B flat 7, E flat 7, B flat 7, B flat 7. It's the first 4 bars. I might just make that all B flat for the whole bar, and maybe put an altered chord in like B flat 7 sharp 11. Sorry, B flat 7 sharp 9 or something like that. And I might play a pattern like. See, when I hit the C minor, I resolved it and I started moving back into more of a bass line. Or it could be I could do something like maybe a more chromatic kind of idea, something like. Still got this bass line on the bottom, but I'm adding in the chords as well, and I'm creating a kind of more of a pattern. I don't tend to do those for too long. I'll tend to do them and then I'll resolve back into the walking bass line, and that sort of, it's a tension and release thing really. I'm creating tension by playing this pattern round and round, and then when I release it, it's like, ah, there it is. And the release is coming back into the chords. Cool, so I hope you found that useful. I think I'll take this lesson out and I'll just play a B flat blues and I'll demonstrate how I would use this. A lot of these things I just do instinctively. I don't even think about them anymore. They've just been doing them a long time. And some of them I like to try and sort of do things on the fly as it's happening, you know, because I'm improvising. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks. Oh, remember to subscribe. You know, click the link below. There's heaps more lessons on my YouTube page. Look me up on Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Keep in touch. Cheers.